We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Zayin Amar Aleph from Mesechet Sanhedrin. This is Sanhedrin Daf 37a. This daf is sponsored by Alexander Rosenfeld in memory of Willie Rosenfeld. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you'd like to sponsor an Amar Daf, see the description box below, and see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. And the Mishnah is continuing to describe the arrangement of the Sanhedrin. V'shalosh shuros shel Talmidei Chachamim. There are 3 rows of Talmidei Chachamim, Yoshvin Lifneihen, that are sitting in front of them, in front of the Sanhedrin. Kol echad v'echad makiris makom, where every single person recognizes where his place is supposed to be. They were seated according to their greatness. Hutzruchu lismoch, if they need to give someone smicha in the middle of the proceedings, Rashi will explain. Somchin min harishona, so then they do smicha from the first person, that's the person of the highest stature. And echad min hashniya bolo l'rishona, somebody from the second row is now going to move up to the first row. Essentially, everyone is going to move over a spot. Echad min hashlishas bolo l'shniya, somebody from the third row is going to move up to the second row. Borim lohen od echad min hakol, and they choose one more person from the congregation, umoshivan oso b'shlishas, and he takes his place in the third row. V'lohaya yoshev b'mekomo shel rishon, the person that moves up, let's say from the second row to the first row, is not going to move up to the place of that first person in the first row. Ela yoshev b'mekom haroilo, he's going to sit in the place appropriate for him, meaning again, everyone is going to move up one spot. And Rashi explains, V'shalosh shuros, there are 3 rows, kolachas kaminyan Sanhedrin, every single row is the same as the number of judges of the Sanhedrin, Esr Mushlosha, which is a total of 23. Each row has 23 students. Shem yachliku hachaf gimel, and the reason for this is, let's say you have a situation where there's a division among the 23, Ruban mechayivin umiot mezakin, you have the majority that say chayiv, and a minority that say innocent, v'hatoya l'ra, ein al pi echad, however, you're not allowed to say guilty through just a majority of 1, but sarech lahosif shnayim, you're going to have to keep adding 2 judges at a time at shivim v'yechad until you get to 71, until you have a proper majority that says guilty or innocent. Hilkach tzarech lahoshiv lifneim arba'im u'shmona. Therefore, you're going to have at least 48 students in front of them lahashlam as shivim v'yechad. That's going to complete the amount of 71. However, says Rashi, v'lav orach, it's not proper derech eretz la'asos shuros latalmidim shel chavdal. You can't, for example, have 2 rows of 24 each. Shetei meruba mishal dayanim, because then those rows are going to be larger than the amount of judges. V'lo la'asos shuros ketanos, it's also not appropriate to make smaller rows. V'lo shtayim shel chav gimel v'echad shel shnayim talmidim, it's also not appropriate to have 2 rows of 23 and then 1 of just 2. Hilkach avdi shalosh shuros, that's why they do 3 rows, again each with 23. And Rashi continues, V'chol echad makiris makomo, each person recognizes his place, Lefisha betchila keseder hoshivam, shura rishona gedola mishal shniya, because again they're arranged in order of greatness. The first row is greater than the second row. V'hi gedola min ashlishis, the second row is greater than the third row. V'gam b'chol shura v'shura hoshivam keseder hagadol barosh sheni lamata himenu, also within each row you have them in order of greatness. V'chen kulan zeh lamata mizeh, that's how it goes the whole way. Lafikach tzarech kol echad lahakar makomo, that's why everyone needs to recognize his place. And if it's necessary to give somebody smicha, and for example, let's say one of the judges dies, so then you're going to give smicha from that first row, and those are the greatest students. Somebody from the second row is now going to move up to the first. You're not going to bring somebody from the community to the first row, because even the lowest of the talmidim in the rows is greater than the greatest person in the community. And again, when you're going to bring someone in, let's say from the community, he's not going to sit at the front of the third row. He's going to sit in the proper place, meaning at the very end of the row. The same thing is true. The person who goes from the third row to the second row, he's going to be at the end of the second row. And also the one who was given that smicha from the first, he's not going to sit in the place of that first person. Everybody who moves up goes to the end of that next row. Everybody moves over one spot. Each one fills the person right next to him that spot. Because even the lowest of the judges, Hagadol shebetalmidei harishona, he's still greater than the greatest of those in the first row. V'hakatan sheberishona, and the smallest in the first row, gadol min hagadol shebeshni, is greater than the greatest of the second row. Hilkach ki naidi kulhu naidi, that's why they all move over. Kishamei sechad mehen, if someone should die, moshivan acher chalifa, and they have to put someone in as a substitute. Kulan tzrichin landud ish mimekomo, everybody's going to have to move. They're all going to move up one spot. And the Gemara says, Menohani Mili, from where do we know this? The Gemara is asking, how do we know that the Sanhedrin sit in a circle? Amar Ravacha bar Chanina, Ravacha bar Chanina says, Diomar Krotz, because the Pasuk says in Shir Hashirim, Sharareich Agan Hasar al Yechsar HaMozik, it says that your navel is like a round goblet, and the amount of wine shouldn't be diminished. And the Gemara interprets this, Shararech, your navel, Zu Sanhedrin, that's a reference to the Sanhedrin. Lama Nikra Shma Sharech, why is it referred to as the navel? She Yosheves B'tiburo Shalolim, because it sits at the navel of the world, meaning to say it sits in the Beis HaMikdash, that's where the Sanhedrin would sit. Agan, and then it says Agan Hasar, Agan refers to a goblet, but it also comes from the word Mogen, which means a protection, a shield. Shehi Megina al Kol Olam Kulo, because the Sanhedrin protects the entire world. And Hasar, again, it means a round goblet. The Sar refers to the moon, which is round. Shidom el-sar, it's similar to the Sar, it's similar to the moon, it is round. And the Gemara continues, Al Yechsar HaMozik, it says that the amount of mixed wine should not be diminished. Shem hutzrach echad mehem lotzes, if somebody needs to leave, Rowan, then we have to see him. Yesh esrim ushlosha keneged Sanhedrin katana yotz, if we have 23 corresponding to the size of the small Sanhedrin, he can leave. Vimlav eno yotze, and if not, he cannot leave. And Rashi explains, Mozeg is shnei chelkei mayim ve'echad yayin, when they would mix wine, it would be 1 portion wine, 2 portions of water, and that's what it means, al yechsar hamozeg. When it means al yechsar hamozeg, it can't be diminished. Al yechsar mechelek hashlishi, you can't have less than that 1/3. Shukadei haroy lemozeg, that's the amount that is fit in order to mix wine. Esr mushlosha, that's 23. When somebody has to leave, you have to have at least 23 there. Shlish shel shivim, that is 1/3 of 70. Lotzeis la'asakav, he has to leave in order to take care of whatever business he has to take care of. Chutz la'lishka, and he's leaving the lishka, you have to have that amount of people remaining. Again, this is talking about the Sanhedrin Gedola, and we should note that Rashi and the Mishnah said that when the Sanhedrin sits in a circle, it's talking even about a Sanhedrin Ketana of 23, but could be referring as well to the Sanhedrin Gedola. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. The Pasuk in Shir Hashirim says, Bitnech arei maschitim, it says, your belly is like a heap of wheat. Ma arei maschitim hakol nanen mimena, just like a heap of wheat, everyone gets benefit from it. Af Sanhedrin, so to the Pasuk is saying, so to the Sanhedrin, hakol nanen mita'amei, and everybody benefits from the reasons that they give. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. The Pasuk says in Shir Hashirim, Suga bashoshanim, it is fenced in with flowers, with lilies, shafilu kesuga shel shoshanim, even with a fence of flowers, of lilies, lo yifrtzu behen pirtzos, Klal Yisrael would not breach that fence. V'hainu damar le'ahu mina l'Rav Kahana, that's like the incident where a particular heretic said to Rav Kahana, Amrisu nida shari, you say that it's permitted for a husband to be with his wife who is a nida liyichuda, they can be alone together. Bahadei gavra, together with a husband. Efshar eish bin ha'ores ve'ina mehav heves, is it possible that you have fire and you have firewood and it's not going to cause a flame? How can you trust that the husband can be with his wife when she is a nida? Amar lei, so he said back to him, HaTorah hi'ida aleinu, the Torah testifies about us, Suga bashoshanim, that they're set about with lilies, and it means to say, Shafilu kesuga bashoshanim, even a fence that's just a fence of flowers, a fence of lilies, lo yifrtzu behen paratzos, they're not going to make a breach in that fence. We can trust Klal Yisrael in this regard. And the Gemara continues, Reish Lakish says, Mehacha, we can see the same thing from here, from the following pasuk. The pasuk says, Kefela charimon rakosech, it says, your temple is like the split pomegranate, and we darshan that to mean as follows, Afilu reikonin shabach, even the empty ones from among you, meaning even the empty ones from among Klal Yisrael, Malayan mitzvahs karimon, they are filled with mitzvahs like a pomegranate. And the Gemara continues, Reb Zera Amar Mehacha, Reb Zera says we can see the same idea from here, from the following pasuk, Vayorach esreich begadav, it says that he smelled his garments. This was talking about when Yaakov came in to get the brachos from Yitzchak. Al tikre begadav, don't read that as begadav, as his garments, ela bogdav, rather it means the rebellious ones, even those have a beautiful smell. And the Gemara continues, Hanu biryone dahava b'shivivuse de Rabbi Zera, there were some hooligans that lived in the neighborhood of Rabbi Zera, dahava mekarevlu, and he was close to them, ki hechi denahadjalu b'tiyufta, in order that they should do teshuvah, v'havi kapti rabbanon, but the rabbanon were upset about this, they didn't like the fact that he was mekarev these individuals. Ki noch nafshe de Rabbi Zera, when Rabbi Zera died, Amri, so these individuals, they said to themselves, ad ho'idn, until now, have a charicha kotin shakye, the small person, Rabbi Zera was a short person who had singed legs, that's a story, an episode that happened in Bab Metzia. So they were referring to Rabbi Zera. Until now, Rabbi Zera, Davi Boya Alon Rachme, he would daven for us. But Hashta Man Boya Alon, but now who's going to daven for us? Man Boya Alon Rachme, who's going to daven for us, ask for mercy for us? And therefore, when they realized this, Hirharu B'libayu, they thought this in their hearts, V'yavdu Teshuvah, and in the end, they did Teshuvah. Rabbi Zera's actions proved to be correct. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Shalosh Shuros, again, they sat in 3 rows, and let's say one of the judges, for example, died, so then everybody would move up a spot. Amar Abaya says, Shmami, no, we see from this, Ki naidi kulu naidi, that when they move, everybody moves. And so the Gemara says, V'lei malahu, but why doesn't the judge who moves, he should say to them, Ad ho'idna haviyasivna bereisha, until now I was sitting at the front of my row. Hashta mosvisu li bedanvi, but now I'm sitting at the tail of the next row. I'd rather be at the head of the row I was in, rather than move up a row and be at the end of the row. Amar Abaya, so Abaya says, Da'amri lehachi, we say back to him as follows, Havez navla rayos, it's better to be a tail among the lions, v'altahi rosh l'shuolim, rather than be ahead of the foxes, even though you're at the end of the row, but it's better to be the least of that great row, rather than being in a lesser row and being at the head of that row. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ketzad ma'aymin es ha'edim, how do we scare, how do we intimidate the witnesses, al eidi nefashos, when it comes to testifying in capital cases. Hayu machnisan osan, they would bring them in, u'ma'aymin alein, and they scare them as follows. They would say, Shema tomru me'omed u'mishmua, maybe what you're saying is really just something that you're estimating, or maybe it's a rumor you heard, eid mi pi eid u'mi pi adam neman, maybe you heard a witness testify about this, or you heard from another trustworthy individual. Shema iyatem yodin, maybe you don't know, shesofenu livdok eschem, b'drishu v'chak, that we're going to examine you with all kinds of questions. Havu yodin, you should know. Shalo kedinei mamanis dinei nefashos. It's not the same. A monetary case is not the same as a capital case. Dinei mamanis adam nosein mamonu mischaperla. When it comes to monetary cases, a person pays money and then that's his atonement. Dinei nefashos, but when it comes to capital cases, damo v'dam zerosav teluyin bo ad sofa olam. If a person makes a mistake, testifies falsely in a capital case, so this person spilled blood and the blood of his descendants who were never born, that is going to be hanging upon this person until the end of the world. Shekain matzino bekayin shaharag es achiv. That's what we find by Cain when he killed his brother. Shenemar, like it says, demeo chichat soakim. It says the bloods of your brother. They're screaming out. Eino omer dam achicha. It doesn't say the blood of your brother. Ela demeo achicha. It says the bloods of your brother. It says it in plural. It refers to damo, his blood, vedam zarosav, and also the blood of his children that were never born. And the Mishnah continues, Davar Acher, another explanation, Demei Achicha, the bloods of your brother, Shahaya Damo Mushlach, Alo Eitzim Ve'alo Avonim. It means that his blood wasn't gathered in one place, it was scattered among the wood and among the stones. And the Mishnah continues, Lafikach, therefore, Nivra Adam Yachidi. That's why Adam was created alone. There was only one person created at the beginning. L'lamedcha, that's to teach you. Shekal ha'ma'abed nefesh achas miYisrael. Anyone who destroys one soul from Klal Yisrael, ma'alo olav ha'kosav, ki'ilu ibed olam mali. The Torah considers it as if he destroyed an entire world. V'chol ha'mekayim nefesh achas miYisrael. And anybody who sustains one soul from Klal Yisrael, ma'alo olav ha'kosav, ki'ilu kiyem olam mali. The Torah considers it as if the person sustained an entire world. Umivnei shalom habrios, and it's also the reason why Adam was created yechidi, Adam was created alone, is for shalom habrios, so that there's peace among the people. Shelo yomar Adam l'chaveru. This way, one person cannot say to his friend, Abba gadol me'avicha, my father is greater than your father. Everyone essentially comes from the same person. V'shelo yu haminim omrim, also so that the heretics don't say harbe reshuyos b'shamayim. If many people were created at the beginning, they'll say there are many reshuyos, there are many gods in the heavens. That's why they each created a different person. If there's only one person that was created, it testifies to the fact that there's one God. And also, it testifies about the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because if a person, let's say he stamps a bunch of coins with one stamp, all the coins are going to be identical to one another. But the King of Kings, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everybody is stamped with the seal of Adam Harishon, and yet one person is not similar to his friend. Everybody is different, even though they all come from Adam Harishon. And the Mishnah continues, Lefikach, therefore, kol echad v'echad chayev lomar, everybody is obligated to say, B'shvili nivra ha'olam, the world was created for me. V'shema tomru, maybe you will say, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video, on Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Beis.